Why are you so vilified and misrepresented?
Oh, well, that's easy. I mean, first of all, some of that's justifiable. You know, like if I stand up and say, a huge swath of the university has become corrupt, and there's these legislative occurrences in Canada that are unacceptable, the first response is, why the hell should we assume that you're not just crazy? Well, and so then how do you find out? Well, you say, well, you might be crazy like this, or 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 like this. Prove you're not. Okay, so that's harsh, but there's an element of it that's reasonable inquiry, right? Because the stakes are high. So there's that, and that would just be part of normal investigation in some sense, like characterological testing. And then the next part is, well, the people that I'm really going after, the ideas that I'm really going after, are those that animate the radical collectivist leftists. And I'm not a friend of that ideology, even a little bit. And so it's in the best interests of the people who've identified themselves with that ideology, or who have allowed themselves to become possessed by the ideology, which is a better way of thinking about it, right, to make the case that I'm so far on the other end of the spectrum, out there with the Nazis, that no one reasonable ever has to listen to me. So that's what they claim. Because if I'm reasonable, or even worse, seem to be reasonable, and I'm criticizing their ideology, then what that indicates is that reasonable people who are seen to be reasonable have an issue with that ideology. And so, of course, they're completely terrified about that, because A, to take that seriously would be to question the ideology, and B, it's not in their best interest from the perspective of power. So that's plus it's easier. That's the final thing. It's like, well, and I've done many television interviews now where the entire dialogue is about my alt-right views, which are non-existent. But it's a lot easier to think, well, here's the left, I can't understand that. Here's the right, I can't understand that. This person is here, I don't need to know anything about them because I know everything about the context, and so I actually don't have to think during the discussion. And so a lot of mainstream television interviews in particular are exactly of that form. Here's a bunch of things you think. It's like, well, no, that happened in Channel 4.
Right.
But what was so amazing about that interview, what should have happened really, was that the interviewer should have tried that on me 6 times, noticed that it didn't work, and had a conversation. But what happened was, I think it was 40 minutes, the entire interview was nothing but groundless accusations. And then one failure on her part, because she asked me why I had the right to offend people, and I said, well, that's the same right you exercise as your profession. So what are you doing? I said essentially that. What the hell are you doing asking me that question? And she had no answer for that. And I think the reason because that was another one of these events that went seriously viral, right? I think 10 million people have watched that online, and at least another 40 million in cuts of it in various forms.
Yeah.
And I think what that was in some sense was the revelation of the dying gasps of the mainstream media. It's like, oh, this is what it's like. It's like, oh, we're done with that.
What's it like being the bad guy and having everyone try to take pot shots at you? Because I see a lot of videos and you're on stage and people seem like they're just trying to be the guy that attacks Jordan and gets one over on him.
Yeah.
That must be exhausting.
Well, it is exhausting, I would say. Like the most stressful thing I do is do mainstream media interviews. It's really stressful. And so it's so stressful that, well, I've curtailed a fair bit of it, and I'm really thinking of not doing them. There's still, I'm doing far fewer of them.
Right.
And I think I've hit the point of diminishing utility anyways, in terms of communication.
But even the ones that go wrong, quote unquote, you end up going right.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, is like, it isn't necessarily a bad thing to allow those who consider themselves your enemies to make their case. Now, it's hard because many people who have come after me are far from stupid. And so it's not like they can't make their case with a fair bit of force and, what would you call it, rational structuring. So, and then there is, if you're in a boxing match, having to defend yourself is effortful, because people could definitely land a punch and sometimes do.